Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Rudra and today we are continuing Python programming. In previous lecture number 5, we studied about conditional statement, if, loop, if else, loop, not loop, if statement, if else statement, if else statements, and match case in Python, and indentation, and past statement. So I hope you have revised that, and so let's move forward and today's lecture number 6, we will study about loops. While loop, for loop, what is range function in loop, nested loops, break statement, continue statement, pass statement with loops, else with loops. So without wasting any time, let's continue. So first let me give you overview of what are loops before we go into what type of loops. So loops are generally when you want your code to iterate many times. Like you want any function to iterate multiple times in your program, then you use loops. Okay. So now let's move on to what type of loops there are. First one is while loop. A loop is used to repeat a block of code multiple times. The while loop keeps executing its block as long as the given condition remains and stops as soon as the condition becomes false. So what you need to remember about while loop is that there is a condition in while loop, and until that condition remains true, the loop will continue, the code will repeat again and again till that condition is true. After that it stops. What is its syntax? Syntax is while, here you will write the condition, then colon, then statement. Until the statement is true, till the statement is true, your condition is true, statement will repeat again and again. Whatever inside while loop will repeat again and again. So you can see an example here. Count is equals to 1 while count is less than or equal to 5. Print count, count plus equal to 1. So here count is equal to 1. Now while count is less or equal to 5. So here count is 1. Okay. So this condition is true because it is less than equal to 5. Print count. So this statement will run print count, and so 1 will be printed, and then there is count plus equal to 1. You remember this is operator in which generally means count is equal to count plus 1. So we are adding here 1 to the count. So in the next iteration count will become 2 here. Again the while loop will run because the condition was true last time, so again it will run. Here count is 2, again condition is true, it will print 2 because count is now 2. This time again 1 will be added to count, so it will become 3. Here 3 will be stored here. Again while while loop will run. Here the count value is 3, it is still true, condition is still true, so here it will print 3. Again it will increase by 1, 4. Again the condition is true, again 4 will be printed, again 1 will be added to it, 5. Now condition is still true, it is less than or equal to, so 5 is equal to 5, so condition is true, 5 will be printed. Now 1 will be added to 5, which will make it 6, count will become 6. Now the condition is not true, so the loop stops. So the answer output will be 1 to 5, 1 2 3 4 5. Key points: the condition is checked before every repetition iteration. So condition is checked before the repetition. If it's false the very first time, the loop body never runs at all. So if the first condition is already false, then it will not run at all. You must include something inside the loop that eventually makes condition false, like count is equals to 1 above. Otherwise you get an infinite loop that never stops. In while loop you have to make sure that you make the condition so that at some point condition is false, like you are adding 1 to count. If you remove that statement, then count 1 will always be less than 5. So it will always print 1 till infinity, which can break your system. Okay, so overload your PC, so make sure of that, because the code will run infinitely in an infinite loop. A while loop is best used when you don't know exactly how many times you need to repeat something in advance. Keep asking for input until it's valid. So you need to make sure that while loop, whenever there is a question of loop and there is a condition, but you have the condition, you have the logic, like you have condition which should be true, and till then the loop should run, but you don't know for how many times it has to run, then while loop is used. For example, here you know the condition that you have to run the loop until it is less than or equal to 5, but you don't know how many times it will run, because the user doesn't we don't know what will be the count. Okay, that's why here you can see here it will run forever. Always double check that loop variable is updated inside the loop body, or the program will is run forever and need to be manually stopped. You have to cancel that. For loop, now let's move on to the second type of loop, which is for loop. For loop is used to iterate, go through over a sequence, such as a string, list, tuple, range of numbers, running the loop body once for each item in that sequence. So it is a loop which is a go through loop which runs over a sequence. Like if there is a list, there are multiple elements in the list, and you want to go from one element to other to third to fourth, then it is used. For variable in sequence statement. For letter in Python, print letter. So it will print PYTHON. Looping through a list. Fruits, apple, banana, and mango. In this list, there are three elements: apple, banana, and mango. For fruits in fruit, print. So it will print apple, banana, and mango. It iterates through the list. Okay. A for loop is best used when you already know the sequence or number of items you want to go through. This makes it more common than while for most everyday tasks. So if you know the sequence, if you know how many times you have to iterate, then for loop is used instead of while loop. And in many cases, mainly for loop is used in everyday task. Loop variable. Letter fruit takes on value of each item in the sequence, not at a time automatically. Unlike while loop, a basic for loop doesn't need a manual counter to stop. It naturally ends when the sequence is finished. So you don't need to make sure you then don't need to focus on for loop running infinitely. It doesn't happen in many cases, because it naturally ends when the sequence is finished, because you already know how many times the loop, right? Now, range function. Range is a built-in function that generates a sequence of number commonly used with for loop to repeat action in specific number of times. So range is a built-in function which is commonly used with for loop. Let's see with an example. Three ways to use range. Range stop, 0 up to, not including stop. Range 5. Here if you write range 5, then it will produce 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So range 5 generally means you have to stop at 5, because the index start from 0, so there are 5 elements here. Okay, it will iterate 5 times. Now you can use range in this way: range start and stop, comma with comma. So You can either, if you want to start from 0, then you can just write where to stop. If you also want to give a starting position, like you don't want to start from 0, you want to start from 5, 10, then you can write 10 here and write when to stop. Like here, range 2 to 6, so it will start to print from 2, 3, 4, 5, and the last it will print till 5. Okay, range, start, stop, and step. Now you want to print from other than 0 and stop at somewhere, but you also want to skip some numbers in a repetitive manner. So here, range, you want to start from 0 till 10, but you want to skip every 2 digits. So 0, 1 will be skipped, 0 to 1, 1 to 2. So there are 2 steps, so it will move to 2. Now 2 to 3, 1 step, 3 to 4, 4 will be printed because we are skipping 2 steps. Okay, then 4 will be printed, 6 will be printed, and 8 will be printed. Example for I in range. For I is the index of this, like if range start from 0, then I will be 0. In the next iteration, I will become 1. In the next iteration, 2, I will become 2, like this. So you can see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 will be. For I in range, 10, 0, minus 2. So it basically does what it iterates in backwards. Minus 2 generally means you are coming back 2 steps. If you are starting from 10 and coming back 1 step will be to 9, then 8. So first 10 will be printed, then 8 will be printed, then 8, 1 step back 7, 1 step back 6. 6 will be printed. Then again from there 4 and 2. So this is range function in for loop. Key points to remember: the stop value is always excluded. Range 5 produces 0 to 4, not 0 to 5, because 5 means 5 elements generally. So 0 included, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it already consists of 5 elements. Here if you take 0 to 5, then it will become 6. A negative step like -1 or -2 counts backwards, useful for countdowns. In any case, in any question, if you have to count backwards, then you can use -1 and -2. You can remember that and recall later when needed. Range is often combined with length to loop through a list using index number. For I in range, length, if you have a list, so length of a list will give you a number. You know that range, in range you generally write a integer or a length like 5, 10, and you want to iterate through the list, then you have to know the length of the list. If list consists, let's say, 5 elements, so length will become 5, and then you can go through the list to their indexes, index wise. Nested loops. A nested loop is a loop placed inside another loop. For every single iteration of the outer loop, the entire inner loop runs completely from start to finish. Now nested loop means inside a loop. First, if it will check. Now we can see from the example. I will teach you how does it work. First, it will check this condition. Like for loop, it doesn't check the condition. For loop, it just does it. So outer layer, outer sequence, it will check the outer sequence. Then it will check the inner sequence, and then it will print the statement. So here you can see the example. You can read the example if you want. Here, as you can see, for I in range, 1 to 3, 1 and 3. So you have to start from 1 and end at 3. So first I in range 1. Here I is first one, then we will go inside the nested loop, which is j, and here j is from 1 to 4. So j is 1 in this condition. Print, what do we have to print? I is equal to I and j is equal to, so we have to print in which iteration what is what. So for I, when I is 1, then j will be printed all 4 times. So I is equal to 1, j is equal to 1. Again j will run till all the iterations are done. So I is again 1 and j is 2. I is 1, j is 3. I, then after all the iterations are done, because j will print from, j will iterate when the nested loop will iterate when j is 1, 2 and 3, because 4 is not included. You should remember that the for loop where the stop, where we stop, is not included in it. So it will only run till j is 3. After j is 3, again this loop is completed, nested loop is completely iterated for all the possibilities it can. Then it will go back to the outer loop, and now I is 2. Okay, so now for I is 2, j will be 1, 2 and 3. So I is 2, then j will be 1, I is 2, j will be 2, I is 2, j will be 3. And now it will go again, all the possible iterations are done for the nested loop inside. So it will go again to the outer loop, and here, because I was already 2 and 3 does not, it does not include in the iteration, then the loop will stop. That's why these are the outputs. Common use case, multiplication table pattern. So basically when are nested loops used? During multiplication. Okay, so the same question here, you can try to make sense of it. I will advise you to check why this output is printed on your own. Okay. Key points. Nested loops are widely used for working with grids, tables, matrices and patterns, like printing stars in a triangle shape. The inner loop completes all of its iteration for each single iteration of the outer loop. So for each single iteration of outer loop, the inner loop will iterate as many times as it is possible. Okay. Then it will go back to the outer loop, then outer loop will iterate again once. Then for that iteration, the inner loop will iterate for again as many times it is possible, and it continues till the outer loop, all the iterations in the outer loop are done. That's what it's saying. This is important to understand when calculating total repetition. You can nest a while inside a for loop or a for inside a while loop, any combinations. So you can do that as per the question, as per what are your, what is the question, what is the problem you want to solve. As per that, while inside for and for inside while is. Now, what are break statements? A break statement immediately stops exit a loop entirely, regardless of loop condition or remaining item. Execution jumps straight to the first line after the loop. So what does a break statement does? It mainly stops the loop at a point, completely exits. Okay. So example, for num in range 1 to 10. So we have to iterate from 1 to 10. If num is equal to 5, if num becomes equal to 5, break, print num. So here first num will be 1, then this condition is false. Okay, so it will be printed 1, because if condition is true, then the break statement will run. But for the first 4 times, like when num is the 1, then 1 is printed, because you print num is written here. Then it is 2, then it is 3, then it is 4. When it becomes 5, then this condition is true here. So if statement will run, and what is inside if break. So break will run and it will break the loop. Now the loop will not iterate again. Now the loop will not, it's not like if you do break then it will not print and again go for num is equal to 6. No. Break, after using break it completely exits the loop and loop is done. It won't be iterating again. Key points. Break is commonly used to stop a loop early once a certain condition or goal is met, finding an item or exiting on an special input. Okay. In nested loop, break only exists in innermost loop. It is written in. The outer loop continues normally. So nested loop, the inner loop in which a break is written, that loop will exit, outer loop will still run. If you write break in outer loop, and if that break break runs, then the both loops are stopped, because at the end the inner loop is inside the outer loop. So inner loop is only running when the outer loop is running. So that's why, for, you just have to keep in mind that if you want to exit the inner loop, you have to write the break in the inner loop, and outer loop will not exit. And if you write break for the outer loop, then the whole nested loops will exit. Works the same way in both for and while loops. So it works for both type of loops, for and while loops. Continue statements. The continue statement skips the rest of the code inside the current iteration and moves directly to the next iteration of the loop. It does not stop the loop entirely, unlike break. So now if there is break which completely exits the loop, we need something that if you want to continue the loop but we don't want the particular iteration, so use continue state. It it generally means what it says. Continue means continuing the loop for num in range 1 to 6. So if num is equal to 3, continue print. Okay. So what will it do? When it will generally continue, will stop the next part of the loop. Like if when num becomes equal to 3, then this statement will be true and continue will run, and continue will what do, it stops that iteration till that point. So now print num will not run, because here as you can see 3 is missing. When continue will run, it will move directly to the next iteration when num will be 4. After continue, whatever there is after continue inside the loop, it won't run. Continue will skip all that part and directly skip that iteration completely and move to the next iteration. Notice 3 is skipped. It is talking about the above example, but the loop still continues and completes all remaining values. This is the key difference from break, commonly used to skip specific unwanted values while still processing everything else in the example. Skip negative numbers, skip blank entries. So let's do a quick comparison between break and continue. Break stops the loop completely and exits. Continue skips only the current iteration. Pass statement. As covered in previous lecture, pass is a statement that does nothing. It acts purely as a placeholder whenever Python syntax requires a statement, but you don't want any action to happen yet. So many students gets confused about pass statement and continue. Continue and pass are actually not the same. Pass, if you use pass here, right? If you write pass here, then print statement will be printed. Pass generally means you are doing nothing. Okay. Continue does something. Continue, what does continue does? It skips the particular iteration. So if you want to know what will the difference if you write pass here instead of continue, then here 1 2 3 4 5 will be printed, because pass does nothing. Its primary function is that it does nothing. Here you can see. Oh, The example shows exactly what I said. Here you can see here num is equal to 3. Pass means it is just a placeholder, nothing happens for num3. So 3 will be printed. Okay. Unlike continue, plays pass does not skip anything. The rest of the code inside the loop still run normally since pass simply itself does nothing. Useful while writing structure of a loop first and planning to add real logic for a specific case later. So what is the function of pass? We have already learned it from pass is generally if you don't know the logic or haven't finished planning the logic of the code or what specific is, then you use pass as a placeholder so that it doesn't show error when you are running the code, other parts of the code. Else with loop. A Python allow an else block to be attached to a for or while loop. This else block runs only if the loop completely fully without being stopped by a break. Completes fully without being stopped by a break. So here else is Python allows an else statement. How it is used? Here for loop statement else statement runs only if loop finished without break. So if loop is completely finished, it runs for all the iteration as much as possible. Then else will statement will run. And if you write here, as you can see, here it prints num from 1 to 3. Okay, then because there was no stop in between all the iterations, when num was 1, then it ran, num was 2, num was 3. 4 is not included because we stop at 4, and because all the iterations ran, else statement will also run. When else will not run, when the loop is stopped by break, else is skipped. So here in this case you can see when num is equal to 3 it will break. So after num is equal to 3 this whole loop breaks out, and this else statement as well. Note in the second example loop finished completely is not printed because the loop was exited early using break. This else is different from else used with if. Here it's tied to whether loop broke early or not to any condition of its own. So here this else is different for if else, different from if else statements conditionals, because just remember that what is its function. It's if the loop runs without any break, then the else will be printed, and if there is a break statement in the loop, then it will not run. Okay, that's what function is. A common real use case: searching for an item in a list. If found, break. If the loop finishes without finding it, the else block can print item not found. Like it can give the information to the user. If it runs through the item list of items and it doesn't find, because all the iterations, all possibilities, all iterations ran, then else will print that item not found because it didn't break. But if item was found, then break statement will run. You will write a code in a way that if the item is, then break statement will run, because the item is found and you don't want to run the code loop anymore. So the after the break statement, because item is found, so you don't need to notify the user that whether item is not found. So that's when else will not run. Practical use case: here numbers are there, a list of numbers 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, and target is 10. You have to find 10 for num in numbers. Okay, if num is equal to target, so if num is equal to 10, print found it, break. So if 10 is present in numbers, so what will be printed? This if statement will be true. Okay, and found it will print found it, and then the loop will break, or else number not found in the list. So because 10 is not present in the list, it will run through all the possible combinations, and at the end, because it didn't break, loop didn't break, there was no num which was equal to 10, and it will print whatever inside the else statement is, which is number not found in the list. So this is the end of lecture 3, which where we studied all the different types of loop. Loop is a very important topic, so I advise you to practice any questions on it. I have one of few important questions for beginners, and the students solve many times, so we'll do that. In the beginning, when you study loops for the first time, it is confusing for a lot of people, because the iteration parts and all that are a little bit confusing. How many times it will iterate, syntax is a little bit harder. In this is where in Python now little bit difficult topics and will start, and this is where real coding will also begin, because now you can use real world problems, you can solve real world problems with using loops and if. So now coding will become hard, a little bit harder, not that much. So advise you again to practice as many questions as possible on loops to get a better grasp at the topic. Now let's move forward and do practice questions for module 6, which is loops. Okay, so these are practice questions especially designed for first time. It won't be that much difficult, but these are will also help you grasp the topic easily. So what's the first question? Write a Python program that takes a number from the user and prints its multiplication table from 1 to 10 using a for loop. So first question is, we have to write a Python program that take a number from user and prints its multiplication 1 to 10. So 7, 70, you have to print multiply its multiplication table, and we have to use for loop for it. So without wasting any time, let's go for the question. So I have already created a file for lecture number 6 practice questions. You can do the same with in VS Code as well, and I will advise you to solve the questions before me. And if you are facing any problems, then you can watch the part of the lecture where I am solving them. So let's first do question number 1. Okay, already under. So we have to take input from a user for a number whose table we have to print, multiplication table. So enter a, so we have taken input from the user. Now for the loop, we have to use for loop for I in range. Now we have to, now here is the important part. To in range, when it going to get confused in the beginning, we have to print from multiplication table from 1 to 10. So from where will I start and from where will I end? Take a guess. So to guess that, we will start from 1 and we will do it till 11. Then you are correct, because to iterate till 10 we have to write 11, because the last part, the last iteration, that is a stop, is not included in range. So it will be like this. When you will write range this, then it will iterate from 1 to 10, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Now what we have to do, print. We are using F format. We have already studied it in strings, I think. Okay, so for better code writing and readability, we are using F. So how are tables written? We write tables like, if you want to write table of 2, then what do you do? 2 into 1 is equals to 2, then 2 into 2 is equals to 4, then 2 into 3 is equals to 6. So we have to write that in that pattern. We will write number, we will write x, capital X, I. So try to read this course, understand it what I have written. We are taking the number, so we have to print the table in this pattern. This is the pattern of the table. Number we are taking, like we are taking 15. So 15 will be here. I will iterate through this range. So for the first iteration, I will be 1, then I will be 2, then I will be 3, and so on. So if you are writing 15 here, then 15 into 1, and here actually it will print number into. Okay, so that's how it is read, and that's how it will function. So let's see if the code is correct. Let's verify the code. Enter a number. First let's take something easy like 2, and as you can see, 2 into 1 is equals to 2, 2 into 2 is equals to 4, 2 into 3. So here is the table of 2. Let's run again and write something like 10. Again you can see the table. Let's see 47. So now in this way, because this is a helpful way, if you had to print the same thing without using loop, without using iteration, so what you had to do, you have to write this code here 10 times to print this error. And always, what would you have to do, always change the value of I manually, like I plus 1, then I plus 2, or stuff like that. Okay, so question 1 is done. Moving on, let's, question 1 was easy, I hope. You have to practice many loop questions to understand the logic of loop. At first, at first, first it can be a little bit challenging, but then you get a hang of it and you will get better. Commented out this. Let's see question number 2. What does question number 2 says? Prime number checker. So question number 2, we have to check whether a number is prime number. Write a Python program to check whether a given number is a prime or not prime using for loop and the else statement with loop. So we have to use for loop and the else statement with the loops. So here we have to use the else statement. So prime number. You should first know what is a prime number. Prime number is a number which is divisible by 1 and itself only. Okay, prime number is that number. For example, 1. 1 is divisible by 1 and itself. Then 2. 2 is divisible by 1 and 2. Then 3 is a prime number. 3 is divisible by 1 and 3. 4 is not a prime number. 4 is divisible by 1, 2 and 4. 2, because it is divisible by 2, it doesn't follow the two rules, which is a prime number is to be divisible by 1 and itself only. Okay, so that's what a prime number is. So we have to check a number is a prime number or not. So we have to take the number, that number as input. So we'll create a variable. We'll take an input from the user, enter a number. So we have taken input from the user. Now we have to write if loop. And because why we are using loop in prime number, because when you want to check a number is a prime, then you want to check its factor, right? So if you are, let's say, if you want to check if 11 is a prime number or not, so what you will do, you will check is that number divisible by 1, is that number divisible by 2, is that number divisible by 3, and so on till 11. So it means we are iterating through each number till that number we are iterating. That's why for loop is used here. If number is equal, less than or equal to 1, so prime numbers are always positive. So that's, you have to make sure few conditions like prime numbers are always positive, so you have to write this. So if the number entered is less than 1 or equal to 1, then 1 is not a prime number. Okay, you have to, prime number start from 2. My mistake if I said in the beginning that 1 was a prime number. For I in range, so since we are iterating through num to the number entered by the user, or we are iterating till that. What is the meaning of this code? So for loop we are written a loop. First, for loop I in range 2 to number, whatever number user has entered, and this number will not be included here because we don't need to check if the number divides itself, because every number divides itself. So we only need to run the code from 2 to that number, check. And what are we checking? If that number divided by, if we divide it by I, that iteration, it results in 0, or its remainder is 0. So what does this do? It finds the remainder. If remainder is equal to 0, then it will not be a prime, because if the remainder gets 0, means that number is divisible by numbers which are between 2 till that number. And what is a prime number? The number which is not divisible by any number except for 1 and itself. Okay, so that's the logic here. If if you find if you why are you using break here? If you find any number between 1 and that number that it it is a factor of, then you don't need to check for other, you can just break, because a single one directly tells us that it's not a prime. So that's why we directly end this. And if the loop completely runs and we don't find any number it that the remainder is 0, then it is a prime. So this is a code, a little bit complicated, not that much if you understand line by line, if you try to understand line by line. Here we have focused on the if the user enters anything less than 0. So this statement, if in else statement, if the user has entered positive integer, then else statement will run, and in else statement for loop will run, and if the if condition is true, then it will not be a prime, and if the if condition, it will break, and if the condition are are all true and no other number in between 1 and that number divides that, then the else statement will run and it will print at the end the number is prime. So we can run that and verify. So enter a number. First let's write enter 1. So not a prime because here it will print not a prime. Then we can enter any negative ones. That's not a prime. Then we can enter 2. 2 is a prime. Then we can enter, what do you say, 9, not prime because it is divided by 3. Any number, then now it's a code. You can literally write any large number and it will say not a prime. Easily it will find. Now if you had to do it manually, then you would have to find all the factors of this number. In loops you can just do it in seconds, like how much larger number do you want to write, this much larger number. With a click it will already, it has looped through all these iterations in a second and shows that it's not a prime. So question number 2 is done. Let's comment it out. Let's move on to the question number 3, number guessing game. Create a number guessing game where secret number is 7. Keep asking the user until they guess correctly using a while loop. If the guess is correct, print congratulations and stop the loop using break. So user has to guess a number. The number is 7. User has to guess it. If the user is correct, then and we have to stop the loop. In loop means we have to ask the question again and again. We have to the main part which is looping is that we have to ask the question again and again. Like in a video game, if you have played any video games, if you are to always replay something like restart, replay, so that game runs again, that part you can always restart. So that's how it works. We have to generally mainly play this game till we are correct, loop till we are correct. So it, it is a easier question than the question number 2, but we are using loop, we are understanding how while loop works, concept of while loop. So question number 3, so secret number is 7, it was given in the question. Then we have to write while loop, while true. While true means while will be true. We have to make, we have to guess, we have to ask the user again and again for input. So guess the number. So we have to ask the question while true. If guess is equals to, if the guess is whatever user has entered is equal to the number you have created, then what do you have to print? You have to print congratulations. And break, because after he has guessed the correct answer, then he doesn't need to guess further, so the loop will break. Else, now if statement is false and it is never true, then else statement will run and will print that wrong. Yeah. Okay, so I think this much is clear. This was the question, right? Let's see it in the terminal. So let's guess 4 first. Wrong guess. Again, here what is the looping? The question is looping. It is asking. Until now, we haven't seen a looping question like asking automatically. Okay, so this is how you do it. You ask question. We guess 3. Again, wrong guess. 5. Wrong guess. The code is still running, as you can see. Still, we have guessed correctly. After we guess 7, congratulations, the code ends. As you can see now, it is no longer asking us to guess the number. So this was question number 3, how to use while. And while true, if you write true here, while true, it means the condition is always true. Okay, so you have to include a break in it. So remember that you have to include a break in it and some conditions so that doesn't run always. There is a condition where the loop stops. Okay, so question number 3 is done. Let's move on to question number 4. Now question number 4, pattern printing. You might find this type of questions in your exams, in your course, if you are in computer science branch. Okay, you might have to print star hash in this manner or in pyramid manner or upside down. So first you just need to understand the logic behind printing, then you can think of ways to print it in different manners, in a triangle, in prism, okay, in squares, other things on your own. But by doing this question you will understand the basic logic how it is. You have to use nested loops here. So we have to print this pattern, first one, then two, then three, then is not that much difficult, but many students face problems in nested loops and loops in general. So that's why I advise to do a lot of question on loops. Question number 4. So we have to we have to print till it is, we have to print it 5 times like this. We have to run the code 5 times and here 5 times. So 5 and 5. You will notice that how many times it runs in rows and how many times it runs in columns. So as you can see, the code runs 5 times, right? 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, 4 star here. Then in other way, it runs here 5 times in this way. So for range, you have to decide, for deciding the range, this part is very important. How many times does the loop iterate horizontally and vertically, or in how many times in a row and in a column. So in this case, it runs 5. It will helps us decide our range. So for I in range, since both are from 5 and 5, then both the loops range will be, why we are writing 6 here, because 6 is not included, right? If you write 1 and 5, then it will iterate to 1 2 3 4 only 4 times, but it is in actual iterating 5 times. So that's why we have written 6. Then it will iterate for 5 times. First let me write the whole code, then I'll go through how the code is working. Okay. We have studied about this function. It ends, what does it mean? That when the print runs once, then will end, the whole line will end, and the, because as you can see in the question, first star is printed, then the 2 stars are printed in next row and in the next row. So what it does, it skips the line. It ends with this. Okay. It ends the line and it skips a, here print what does, it skips a line. Okay. It prints nothing. So the stars will be printed leaving one line. Now as you can see, code here, the code is simple. As code is done, question number 4 code is done. Now we just have to, let me run it. Okay, so here as you can see, now let me, how this is happening. So first we look outer loop. Now the inner loop iterates for all the possible combination for one iteration of the outer loop. We have studied that. So I is 1 in the first iteration of the outer loop. So for I is equal to 1, j has to run in the range of I. So if I is 1, then j will run for how many times? 1 time. Okay. 1. So 1 star is printed. Now because I is 1, so j can run only 1 time. Then it becomes, it prints, it skips a line, it prints a line, it skips a line here. then it goes back to the upper loop, then I becomes 2. So since I becomes 2, here I also become 2. So now j runs for 2 times. So the print statement runs 2 times, star and star, like that. And again the inner loop ends, outer loop. Now I becomes 3. Now for I3, j runs 3 times. Okay, so that's why print is star is printed 3 times. Okay, now again the loop, inner loop completes, it goes to the outer loop becomes 4, so it is printed 4 times and 5 times. Since here 6 is, so when the I become 5, when I becomes 5, the whole loop range of loop completes, the outer loop ends, and so that the inner loop, and finally you have printed this. If you want, you can just take an input from the user. If you want to decide for input, enter a number. Why are we doing num plus 1? Because as you can see, if the user write 5, then it means user want 5 rows, right? But if you write 5 here, just write num here, then it will, the last stop is skip, is ignored, it is not iterated, so it will run only 4 times. That's why we all automatically here we manually add 1, so that it runs till num. Now you can enter. Here it was fixed, in the first case it was fixed for how much time it had to run. In the second case you can enter a number. First, if you want to build the same thing, then you can enter 5, it will print the same thing. If you want to print 10, let's say, then for 10 it is. Now that you know the basics of how this pattern works, now you can try to print squares, you can try to print rectangles, or in this way that it is a pyramid, like in center there is a star, then 2 below that, then 3 below that, then 4 below that, then 5 below that. It doesn't start at a corner, it starts at a center. That's also a good question. You can definitely explore on that and try different types of pattern print. So question number 4 is also complete. We'll comment it out. Now question number 5 I will leave up to you for you to go. Okay, skip multiples of 3. So we have to skip that. Write a Python program that prints number from 120, skips number divisible by 3 using continue. If the number becomes 18, stop the loop using break. So this question involves multiple topics, multiple, you can do that. Use pass inside an if statement if the number is greater than, just to demonstrate its uses. Like it will do nothing, just you have to. Okay, so you can do this question, try yourself. I will just show you that this is the question, this is the answer. So you can match the answers if you want, if you are facing any problems, but I encourage you to do the question number 5 by yourself first, because it helps your concept clarification with continue, break and pass. So all the practice questions for lecture number 6 loops is done. I hope you understood the loops concept. So thank you for watching the video. We'll meet in the next lecture, lecture number 7. So till then, keep studying and keep practicing for better understanding and other concept of Python. Thank you.